Hello, yes, a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening to you, however you may be listening and wherever you may be listening. This is the latest edition of the Baldwin Sports Media NFL podcast, coming to you at the end of week 11 of the 2025. Why did I have to stumble over the year? I usually stumble over the week, but now I stumbled over the year of the 2025 NFL season. A very interesting week, as it always was. Plenty to talk about, plenty of stuff, as always, off the pitch to talk about, and possibly the biggest name of this season set to add to his story somewhat. We will definitely be getting into that. But before we do, I need to do what I always do at the start of the show, and that is, as always, thank you very much for listening. Don't forget, you are listening to this on YouTube. You can like, you can subscribe, you can hit the bell icon, all those sorts of things. Don't forget to leave a comment as well. I always encourage people to be part of the debate in whichever way they can, also because it helps us out by climbing up the ladders and everything like that. So feel free to do all that, and don't forget to also follow us on our other social medias. We are at Baldwin Sports Media on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. I always have to do that. I always have to include in YouTube, even though I know you're listening on YouTube, but it's just become part of the cadence at this point. I really don't know how to change it or stop it at this point, so I'm just going to keep saying it. So at Baldwin Sports Media on YouTube, Instagram and TikTok, and on Twitter we are at MRB Sports Media, so feel free to follow us and check us out on those platforms. And if you are a returning listener, as always, thank you very much for continuing to make me just that small part of your week. Right, let us get into it. And our first story this week concerns the NFL and the NFLPA. Now, it's always a story that comes out once a year because it's an annual survey, it's an annual story. And usually there is one or two headlines that come out of it, but the broader sense, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I will get to it, is the NFLPA, the NFL Players Association, always holds a survey every year of the players where they ask for a number, they ask for opinions from the players about what they think the state of their respective franchises are. The survey covers a number of topics like, travel, how well the team deals with that, accommodations, how well they treat the families, both, in general and on game day, food and nutrition, so how well they're being looked after in catering, locker room conditions, training, the coaches, the ownership. Basically, they are given grades by the teams, and then they are all ranked 1 to 32, and then we all get to talk about, the Arizona Cardinals are bad at treating their families or whatever. I'm just picking names here. I don't want to asperse anything. I'm just randomly. The Seahawks don't have big enough hotel rooms when they stay. The Steelers have bad training facilities, whatever. It's all come together, and then each team is ranked 1 to 32, depending on how they're graded by everyone of the team. Now, the NFL wants to get rid of these. The story came in from ESPN. That's where the original source from, but again, it gets covered everywhere. But I'm just going to use the reporting from ESPN here. He claims that the report cards, which poll players on various aspects of working conditions, violate the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, clause that says NFL owners and the union must use, and I quote, use reasonable efforts to curtail public comments by club personnel or players which express criticism of any club, its coach, or its operation and policy, according to an August letter from the League's Management Council to the NFLPA General Counsel Tom DePasso, which that was obtained by ESPN. So basically, the NFL is not a fan of the clubs criticising them. Now, I don't want to sound like Randy Marsh here, but I am going to. I'm sorry, I thought this was America. Is this not one of the things that should be covered? I don't want to get into the laws aspect of it, but is this not something that should be covered by some form of free speech law in some way? At least it's all anonymous. At least there's, some level of that to, no individual player can really be punished for speaking their mind in this situation because, it's all anonymous. How are they going to know which individual player? Everyone could give the team catering an A. One person gives it an F. I know, maybe they're fussy eater like I am. You're not going to know who it is, but impacts the grade and drags it down. So I don't get it. I don't get why the NFL would want to, have this. If anything, they should be encouraging more of it because isn't this going to give the owners the kick up the backside to say, hey, we need to sort this out? A good employee, a happy employee is a good employee. All these sort of cliches that you want to throw around should really be at the top of the NFL's, not at the top, there are plenty of other problems, but should be one of the main things of the NFL's remit is making sure that all the players are happy. And, this isn't conducted by them, but, the ARM, the NFL Players Association, the Players Union, is making this happen. The Miami Dolphins say, and again, with all these, I haven't looked at the recent cards. I do not know which is, I'm literally just spilling out ideas. This is just whatever. But the Dolphins don't have very good training facilities. Okay, let's go invest in training facilities. If this is what the players are thinking, maybe this is going to play an impact in who we can get in free agency, say. So let's go redo our training facility, then we may be able to get some better players. All these things are going to play a part and make the NFL players' lives, and as a result, the NFL better. Like, shouldn't everyone be aiming to be getting A's in every single thing that they're doing? I don't get why the NFL, has this issue with, that's reasonable efforts to curtail public comment by club heads and personnel which express criticism of any club, its coach, or its operations and policy. Like, again, this is all being done to try and make the NFL and the NFL clubs by association better. And what better source to get this from than by the players who are using this every single day? You look at the front offices, no member of the front office is going to be using every single bit of it. The GM is not going to be in the weight room every day. The wide receivers coach probably may not be having the team catering every day. Maybe one day, he stays late, he brings his own dinner or he orders something in. I don't know. But the only people who are going to use every single bit of this every single time are the players. So I don't get why the NFL would want to curtail this. Now, maybe this is something that's going to be brought up at the next CBA agreement, which I do not know when that is up next, but it's usually every 10 years. So it's probably due some point. It's probably due some point soon. Maybe they will make some adjustments to this. But for right now, I don't think this is something that's going to be going away anytime soon between the NFL and the NFLPA. And again, it's maybe something that they have to, it's something that's negotiated. Where there's all this talk about, an 18th game, player safety and everything. Maybe that'll be part of it. Yes, we'll give you, you can have the 18th game, but we want to be able to keep the surveys. Everyone talks about, what's the trade-off? We want less padded practices. We want a bigger share of the revenue that goes on and all these sort of ancillary things. Maybe that's going to be part of it. Okay, you want an 18 game. You want to put our bodies on the line. We want to be able to say that we can't recover very well because our training facilities are not good. Or when we go on the road, we stay in very bad hotels that the team picks. We want to be able to pick nicer hotels so we can be rested and recovered and in good shape before the game. All these things. I think it is good for the NFL to do this. Well, again, it's not the NFL that's doing it, it's the Players Association, but I don't think the NFL should really be in the market of trying to suppress this news or trying to get teams to, get the players to say unnecessarily good things. Like, this should be, part of every job description, employee relationship. This is probably a very crucial thing. It probably goes on in every business. I'm pretty sure you have had, workplace surveys to say, hey, what can we be doing better? No, it's done anonymously. Whether or not those are always true anonymous, you never quite know, but at least they say it's anonymous. Then you say, I don't know, I'm going to use the Simpsons line here, no more apples in the vending machine, give us unhealthy snacks. Give us unhealthy snacks. Fine, if that's what employees want, give it to them. That's what it should be. I don't think the NFL should be trying to suppress this in any way. But we'll wait and see what happens and when, if ever, these changes do come into effect. Moving on to our second story of the week, and this one is sort of an on the field matter, but it is so big that I think it warrants being talked about in the main part of the show. And that is the news that Shedeur Sanders is going to be starting for the Cleveland Browns this Sunday. Now, I only talk about Shedeur Sanders like this because this is going to be, I saw a clip on social media of, it must have been some Cleveland radio station. If I could find it, I'd go back and look for it. But I know I didn't bookmark it, so I know I'm not going to find it. But this is going to be the most attention that a quarterback for a team that is 2-8 is ever going to get. because it is Shedeur Sanders. It was the name going into the draft. It was the name coming out of the draft. It was the name for most of training camp. And now he is finally going to be given his chance. Now, when I say given his chance, this is a proper chance because we all saw the discourse that came out around him when he came in relief of Dylan Gabriel this week, when Dylan Gabriel came out because of a concussion. And whether or not Shedeur Sanders was a bust, and people already labeling that, even though, he came in relief and, let us be honest, was thrown into a very, very difficult situation. Cold, hasn't had the reps with the first team players, going up against the Baltimore Ravens, which I know they've had their problems, but on their day are still one of the very, very best defenses in the league and have the potential to be that with players all over the place. And coached by a very good team as well. Coached by a very good management team as well. So he was always on a bit of a hiding to nothing when it came to this Sunday. So even though I'm not the biggest fan of Shedeur Sanders, I am going to give him a pass because I don't think it's fair to judge him and say, oh, he's a bust, or he would never belonged, or that's why he was a 5th round pick. I'm not going to be laying into him for that just yet. But this is going to be very, very interesting because now he is going to get his few days working with the ones, getting those reps in, getting familiar. It's also the fact that he is playing against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are not a very good team, who are, 2-8 at the time being, have, I believe, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I'm just looking at the standings here. In terms of points against, one of the worst in the league. And doing it on a day's extra rest because the Raiders played on Monday night. Every single thing that you want to say for Shedeur Sanders in his favour, everything that you want to hold against him for what he couldn't use this past Sunday. Time with the players, coming in cold, reps with the ones, all that sort of stuff. The opponents, everything. Everything is going to be in his favour. And again, I'm not going to be one, just like I'm not going to say he's a bust after one game. If he does well, I'm not going to say that he is the savior of the Cleveland Browns as a franchise. But I think this game is going to be a very, very interesting test to see what he is going to be like moving forward. The other interesting angle for this is the news has emerged over the past couple of days, obviously in light of him going to be getting the starting role this weekend. Is the news has come out that Shedeur Sanders was initially planned to redshirt the entire season. They had planned to sit him out the whole year and let Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, whatever, work it out and just redshirt him the whole year. So that goes to show you the level of faith or lack of that the Cleveland Browns had in him. They figured, okay, he's a 5th round pick, but also not good enough to start in his rookie year. We are going to sit him. So what this is going to do is if Dylan Gabriel is only out for this week and Shedeur Sanders plays terribly, again, not even terribly, I'm not gonna besmirch him like that, but let's say plays to the level that he did on Sunday when he came in. If he goes in and plays like that, has he effectively lost his chance for this season? Or are the Browns just going to stick with him regardless? Because the argument can be made, with the Browns sitting at 2-8 at this point, what do they really have to lose? They really have nothing. I think, regardless of how he plays, the Cleveland Browns need to stick with him. Dylan Gabriel, let them fight it out, let them work it out amongst themselves. Joe Flacco had his time starting. Dylan Gabriel has had his time starting. Now give Shedeur Sanders his time starting. Especially because these are going to be in quote-unquote competitive games. How competitive you can be with the Cleveland Browns, I don't know, but you get what I'm saying. This isn't preseason. This is against actual NFL defenses. Let's take a couple of weeks and see what Shedeur Sanders has done. Let's see what he has picked up in his redshirt time that he's had as a 3rd-string quarterback. give him a pass for that first week because he was given difficult circumstances. He's been given very friendly circumstances this Sunday. Let's see exactly what he can do. Now, I'm not expecting him to go and light up the sky. Throw for 350 yards, go 35 of 46 or whatever, and throw for 5 touchdowns. I'm not expecting that. But if he plays well, that is going to create a very interesting situation for the Browns. Because again, do they go back to Gabriel and stick with their initial plan to redshirt him? Do they ride out Shedeur Sanders? If they ride out Shedeur Sanders and he turns out to be pretty good, what does that mean for Dylan Gabriel, the person they gave up an earlier draft round pick for, or an earlier pick in the draft for, rather, instead of Shedeur Sanders? What do they do with him? Do they look to trade him? Do they make Gabriel his backup? What does that do for the whole dynamic of the... It just goes to show you how bad the Cleveland Browns were, that they have got themselves in this position in the first place. This is what happens when you have a quarterback room of the veteran Joe Flacco, which I don't think anyone can really blame them. That's a smart move to make before they, traded him away and, went to traded him to Cincinnati. 2 rookies, Kenny Pickett, who was, I think in some people's eyes, was going to be starting for them. And then the whole thing with Deshaun Watson, what the hell are you going to do? Just an absolute catastrophe of a quarterback room. And they have put themselves in this situation where I think regardless of if Shedeur Sanders plays well or if he plays terribly, what do you do with them? This is why the Cleveland Browns will always be the Cleveland Browns, because they put themselves in this situation that no one in their right mind would put themselves in. And now they're forcing themselves to scramble and try and sort something out with their now third string quarterback who was never meant to play this season. Doesn't make sense. Never will make sense. The Cleveland Browns will never make sense. Let me know what you think. What do you think is the best scenario for the Cleveland Browns this week? What do you think they should do? What do you think they will do? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. See if you can decipher exactly this monstrosity of a situation that the Cleveland Browns have put themselves in. And with that, we move on to the roundup of the league. And as I say every week, so I've had some people say to it, I'm not going to go into every single game. These are just the ones that caught my attention. And I may miss a big story, but for whatever reason, these are just the ones that caught my attention because I can't keep a hold of every single game. But these are the ones that I talk about. So, obviously the main one, the Sunday Night Football game, the Lions and the Eagles. I am going to put that one down more to the Eagles being good than I think the Lions being bad on the night. Now, that's, the Lions were not at their best. But I think it said more for what the Eagles did and what the Eagles are putting together in their, as a defensive group than what it says for the Detroit Lions. And, because we know how good they are. So I think maybe they just had a bit of a bad off night. I don't think they're bad, but it was just an off night. And obviously the whole, whether or not they would have got another chance with the controversial pass interference towards the end, don't know. Weather would have played a factor as well. All those things. I'm not going to say that the Lions are no good or whatever, although I am just going to touch on the NFC North. Actually, that was going to be my last point, but I'll bring it up now. The NFC North is looking like a very, very, very competitive division if you look at it. The Chicago Bears, well done to them for somehow being on top. Well, Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, rather. Brilliant job getting that offense starting to move that little bit forward, and a very good defense. A reasonable defense as well. The Packers, I don't think anyone's counting them out right now. And the Lions, again, have the benefit of the doubt for what they've done the past couple of years. That is looking like a very, very tough division. And I'm not ruling the Lions out yet, especially with the games they've got coming up within the division. It's going to be interesting. I don't think I can ride the Lions off yet, but I'm going to give that more to the Eagles being good than the Lions being bad. Big concerns emerging if I am the Kansas City Chiefs. Because if you look at what the AFC West is looking like, and we sort of said that, I said that the AFC West could possibly be one of the divisions that sends 3 teams into the playoffs. I don't think I quite got them in the order that they're going in now. The Broncos on top, the Chargers second at 7-4. No, Broncos 9-2, Chargers 7-4, Chiefs 5-5. The Chiefs do get the benefit of the doubt for what they've done if they can win the last 3 games of the season and go into the playoffs hot, they've gone over that. A couple of years ago, they got over that jinx, curse, whatever you want to call it, that mindset. I don't know. I don't know what the word was, but that the idea that they could only win playoff games at home because they had so many home playoff games because of their seedings. Then they went to Baltimore in the AFC Championship game, beat that, and just ended that narrative. That's the term I want, narrative. They ended that narrative. So even if they have to go in as a 7 or a 6 seed, they have the benefit of the doubt that they can play well in the playoffs and get the jobs done on quote unquote any given Sunday. So no, I'm not ruling the Chiefs out yet. They get the benefit of the doubt just like the Detroit Lions do. But they are going to have to do it the hard way. If they want to, if they want to win the Super Bowl, they are going to have to do it the possibly the very hardest of ways. So just keep an eye out for them. Up to the AFC North, and news that Joe Burrow is coming back for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was a full participant in practice today. If I am the Bengals, I am sitting Joe Burrow. I don't think any of it is worth it. I think I said when the news came out that that I think Joe Burrow should be sat for the season because whilst there was a chance, maybe they were competitive. If they were 5-5, yes, I can see that argument. But if you look at the state of the AFC as a whole, going round the AFC East, Patriots and Bills, I think we can probably put them in the playoffs. One of them is going to take a wild card spot. Steelers and Ravens in the North, one of them's going to take, maybe the other one sneaks another wild card spot. The Colts, I think that's probably going to be a one team from that division takes it, and that will be the Colts. But with the AFC West and how they're doing, it's going to be a very hard order for the Bengals to basically, they have to win out and go 10-7, I think, to have any chance of winning, getting into the playoffs. So they have to go and win 7 straight games. I don't think Joe Burrow is doing that, especially with the Bengals defense. There is no point risking him and causing him further injury. So just shut him down for the season, especially after this loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Josh Allen, I know there's been a lot of talk about the MVP race and the discussion of it should be Jonathan Taylor and all that sort of stuff, and should it automatically go to a quarterback? Should it be running backs year? Josh Allen's performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, again, a very good Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Again, that's not rushed over. This is a very good Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. To go and score 6 touchdowns in that environment, in that moment, I think has put him at the top, at least in my mind. I don't know what the bookies' favourites are at the moment, but I think that puts him on top of the MVP race discussion at this point. I know Drake May gets a lot of talk, but when you look at the body of work that Josh Allen can produce on any day, he is just the better player than Drake May, and he is showing it by carrying the Bills the way he is. So I would put Josh Allen number 1 of my MVP. If I had a ballot, I would put him number 1 at this point. Moving back over to the NFC and the NFC West, another division that is looking like it could go down to the wire. With the Rams at 8-2, the Seahawks at 7-3, the 49ers at 7-4. Again, one game does not necessarily make a trend, but the fact that Sam Darnold went back to what would I say was the old Sam Darnold with no touchdowns, 4 interceptions in that game, again, gives me a slight cause for concern. This isn't me saying that they're going to go on a bad run and this is the end of the fairy tale run of Sam Darnold. None of that. But the fact that he's shown that he still has those moments and those games in him would be a slight cause of concern if I were the Seattle Seahawks. Just, again, what's it going to be in a big moment? Especially because they've got to play the 49ers and the Rams again this season. So if he's going to have one of those games on the days when the division is on the line, do you really trust him? It's just pause for thought. Not necessarily saying that, again, not saying he's bad, but just pause for thought. If I were the Seahawks, that, again, he still has those moments in him. And for the final story, it's a rehash of a story that I did a couple of editions ago. But it concerns the World Cup next year in North America. And it concerns the teams that have qualified for this tournament because it has been great to see, again, just more smaller nations. This is the first World Cup where there's 48 nations qualified, so it means some of the non-traditional countries managed to get in. It does also mean that somehow some of the bigger nations aren't even guaranteed their place yet, like Italy in the European qualification. One of the bigger nations still haven't confirmed their place yet somehow with an expanded tournament. But the smaller nations have had their opportunity. So this week, I believe I spoke a couple of weeks ago. It was Cape Verde that qualified for the World Cup, along with the likes of Uzbekistan and Jordan. But this week we saw Curacao, Haiti, and they're not a small country. I don't want to be offensive with this, but Scotland qualifying for their first World Cup since 1998. And if you just see the scenes of what it means for all these teams making it to the World Cup, it really just goes to show what international sports and international competitions can do. And I know it's a bit weird for Americans to maybe get a hang of it because all of the sports are, insular. The main competitions are the Super Bowl, the NBA Championship, Stanley Cup, World Series, and they're all played by club teams, franchises, rather than as nations. But it really just goes to show how brilliant international competitions are. That when you see the scenes of the players and the fans celebrating these incredible achievements, I think it's brilliant. Go again. I urge you all go and find the scenes of Curacao, Haiti, and Scotland qualifying for the World Cups. For the World Cup this week, you will not regret it. But that is the end of the show. As always, I want to thank you very much for listening. Don't forget, if you are new and if you like this, don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, leave a comment. It always helps. Just to make yourself part of the show. I always encourage anything I can. Don't forget to check out our other socials at Baldwin Sports Media on Instagram and TikTok. And then at MRB Sports Media on Twitter. Feel free to check us out there. And as always, if you're returning, if this isn't your first time here, thank you very much for continuing to make this a part of your week. We will be back next week, hopefully with plenty more to talk about and plenty more controversies to dive into. So, as always, take care and as always, stay safe.